Hello, good day, and welcome. I'm your host, Mr. Steve, and this is episode 7, season 4 of the Point 99 podcast. The past week, or at least since our last episode, has been something else. There have been a lot of tags, a lot of shares, and a lot, and I mean a lot, of love being shown, and rightfully so, for the man of the hour, Jace Wood, the Edinburgh runner. Given how much everyone appears to have loved hearing Jace on the show, combined with the chats I've had on direct messenger with him on various bits and pieces he felt he left out, I'll be more than happy to welcome him back anytime. It was also great to hear Jace saying that he'd had a lot of DMs and WhatsApp messages off the back of the episode. Jace did raise the question as to if he'd nabbed the top spot for day one listens off of Nikki Sheridan after she'd stolen it from Jace's old football pal David Wright. But no, that's still firmly tucked under Nikki's arm as both she and Jace head down the John Muir way. What has happened though is the audience introduction to the podcast off the back of Jace's episode has given us an increase to our overall peak position on the Apple charts for running podcasts. It's not something I pay much attention to other than receiving the weekly digest email from one of the sites that keeps track of it, but it has increased our very top mark that we've ever received before. Until we have him back on for his next appearance on the show, all the best of luck to Jace for the John Muir Way tomorrow, as well as for all the incredible events he has this year. That obviously goes for all the insane people abusing their bodies at the event for the sakes of personal achievements and a piece of shiny metal though. All the best of luck with the John Muir Way. This week we have an equally amazing guest sitting in the hot seat. She's an inspirational character with several incredible events and achievements under her belt, who is rarely seen without a positivity-inducing smile upon her face. More on our guest, Serena Broadway, in a bit. Time now for the intro. For those who are new or unfamiliar with the show, the Point 99 podcast is a running podcast for all runners of all abilities, but especially the everyday runners out there. If you're new to running or to the podcast, we hope to have guests, topics and discussions that will help you along whatever path your journey is taking. For any seasoned runners or listeners, perhaps we'll have some stories that will have you empathizing with our experiences and predicaments. If it's lessons we've learned during our own journeys, embarrassing stories or heartstring pulling moments, we hope you'll stick with us while we try share some good vibes, motivation and positivity, and hopefully we can have a laugh along the way. Before we get into the lion's share of the community running and the answers to this week's question, I want to give a massive congratulations to all of those who undertook the Tokyo Marathon on Sunday. It's an extra special congratulations shout out, however, to our long-time listener and supporter to the podcast, Ant. That's at DC Born to Run, as he took himself to the halfway point of his 6-star dream. Elsewhere in the community, we have a diverse array of answers to, firstly, my roll call on where you've been running, eventing and park running. Kicking things off, we have Ben, the barefoot daddy, letting me know that he wasn't running anywhere, especially not at parkrun, where his record remains at 0, having never done one. Thanks for letting me know that, Ben. Maybe you should get yourself down to one though, because they are a great source of social running. Regular listener and responder James Gow, Jimmy Bunter, apologised for a 3-part mini-series in the question box response. He's still trying to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. He took in a social run with the Wild Heart Runners for a Highland Fling Recce, which he says was a great outing, filled with lengthy chat with others, so he'll take that as a win, as well as the 19 miles banked along the Loch Lomond shores. Distractions are always going to be good to have when you're out of your comfort zone, aren't they, Jimmy? Peta, the bread-wielding bandit, was along with her press play and run party at the back social running crew fangirling at the Camperdown Parkrun. Ailish McCogan was the cause of the fangirling, but good on them for getting along for the meet, a greet and social run ticked off together, as well as a cheeky selfie or two. Our man in Saudi, Doug, was back running in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for the first run post-plantar fasciitis. We'll have more from Doug very soon though. Stuart runs a lot, that he does, was at the Ruckhill Park Run in Glasgow, along with a 30-kilometre long run. That man is a machine right now. He is going to be doing some amazing things this year. You mark my words. Ian Smith at B09913. I was trying to figure out what that meant. There's probably a meaning there, but that's his handle. Was down cheering at the Meadows Marathon in Edinburgh with the Good Time Run Club. If the weather was anything like it was up in the Highlands over the weekend, then it would have been a great day all round for both runners and spectators. Finally, we have my friend and London bearded beauty runner man Steve, as he completed the first 20-mile run of the marathon block he's working through. Just 2 days after a wicked 38.59 at his 10k time trial mentioned in the previous episode. Finished off with a capitalised winning. I would like to make these a regular occurrence as I've been trying to get them done for the last few weeks. I just need to remember to do a roll call on the Monday. James McQuillan did drop into the DMs to thank me for shouting him out last week on his parkrun PB. That's what I'm here for though, for supporting you all after the support you show to myself and the podcast simply by listening. I know how much hearing someone shout you out on a podcast or any form of media can lift you when you need it the most. So never feel like you can't share your achievements, things you're proud of, because I will share them with the world and cast a spotlight on you to brighten your day. But from a positive spotlight shout out to a brief moment where we might not want a spotlight shone upon us. This week's question is a little bit different from those which have come throughout the rest of the season. In a minute, I'll be holding my hands up and admitting to an embarrassing story which happened to me several weeks ago. And true to form, in response to this week's question, I'm in good company with it. That is, however, where the question comes in. What embarrassing things have you done or had happen to you on a run? Before I go any further, if you don't fancy hearing poo-related stories, you might want to skip this a little bit. They're all tame in their descriptions, and personally, I found a lot of them very, very funny, as I suspect many of you will as well, but it's a bit of a safety warning if it gives you the ick or the boke. I should also apologise to anyone tuning in for the first time to hear the great chat with this week's guest, only to get shit chat from me beforehand. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to hold my hands up and I'm going to go first and share the story I popped over to our friends at the What the Fartlek podcast anonymously, albeit from the 99's email address. It's, as you might expect, it's a story relating to the good old long run favourite, the number 2. This email was titled One Podcast to Another and came several weeks ago. So I'm going to read the email that I sent to the guys over at the WTF. Today, Sunday, is my go-to long run day. So yesterday, Saturday, I was doing what you do the day before a long run, getting everything sorted and packing in a week's worth of food in a single sitting. Takeaway was on the cards. Of course, I decided in my infinite wisdom that no, a 12-inch Donna meat pizza was nowhere big enough. I had to have a 16-incher. I demolished it in record time as well, bar one slice, which I'd left for a post-run reward. To top it off, I had ordered a Snickers and Nutella calzone to share with my wife. All of that before packing in as many Haribo-type jellies into my gullet as I could without choking. One decent yet saltily dehydrated sleep later, and it was time to get the show on the road. I'd planned to get 30 kilometres ticked off, hit the trails, get some elevation with a 500 metre trig marker, and have a great all-round morning. I tucked into my porridge, had a refreshing instant coffee, and dealt with the day's paperwork in the form of my morning ablutions. I was confident everything was gonna go to plan, as it has every long run so far. Dressed and ready for anything, I set off, making good pace from the house up into the hills. All was going well, albeit a little bit gassy, but I thought nothing of it. A small gust of self-propellant from the posterior never goes amiss. I scoffed down an energy gel or two and an energy bar into the mixing pot that was my stomach and continued. Hitting the main target for the morning, the 500 metre trig marker, things were starting to rumble. I thought nothing of it once again. After all, it wasn't anything that I couldn't hold until I got back home, I told myself. It was only going to be another 15 or so kilometres. I've held it for longer. And so it went, self-reassurance keeping the demons at bay. As I made my way down the second part of the peak, I took a little stumble, hitting the deck and seemingly unsettling my innards even more, with the urge for expulsion increasing. I passed a good number of other morning weekend warriors on the path heading up the hill, knowing if anything was going to happen, I needed to make a diversion. Thankfully, and to my relief, my planned route was taking a turn very soon onto a lesser trodden path. With the escape road in sight, it was time to go. Firstly, I had to make enough distance from the main thoroughfare so as not to get caught out like a rabbit in the headlights. I didn't want it to be too far though, that there would be a Snickers and Nutella calzone forming before my leggings could even be withdrawn. Distance made, I set about getting off the road and down the hillside, far enough down and with enough coverage from any passing eyes before dropping the leggings and dropping the payload. As I hovered there though, it dawned on me I was gonna have to sacrifice an item of clothing, something I hadn't considered until this very point. Would it be the gloves? Perhaps the best tool for the jobby. No, I like them too much. So what then? It had to be between the boxer shorts or the buff. Well, the boxers would mean removing pretty much all of my lower half's clothing, and it wasn't warm enough to even entertain that. Buff it was. Thankfully, a good buff is usually long enough that it can be rolled up and tightly bound and stashed in an empty sweetie packet, that the offensiveness and shame of it could be quickly and safely stowed in the bowels of a backpack and put on a boil wash once you get home without causing any further harm, or even binned for that matter. Dignity soiled for the very first time while out running, but unlikely for the last time. I scrambled back up onto the path and finished what I could of the run. It was a close one in many respects, as only moments after getting back onto the path, I encountered another runner approaching around a slow bend. Thankfully, or at least I hope, he was far enough away on his own run to have had no clue of the crime on nature that had just occurred. And there it is, folks. I'm holding my hands up and admitting to have been caught short for the very first time. Perhaps it was the pizza, or maybe something else. I'm thinking the pizza, but nevertheless, it's done and dusted. I guess I can only wear it as a badge of honour as a true runner now, like some sort of shitty scout badge. But on to the answers from the community, and boy, do we have a couple of great additions to the crap stories. For a change of pace before we get to those, let's have some light-heartedness of a less messy nature from Steph Runs Miles. Steph said, fully expecting a raft of poo-related stories this week, and I'm here for it. Thankfully, touch wood, I've been lucky in that department so far. Nothing wild, but I fully tripped over a tree root at full pelt during a trail run last year and went airborne Superman style for what felt like 10 seconds. I ploughed into a poor woman who was just minding her own business, head and shoulders first, like some sort of Owen Farrell rugby tackle. Thankfully, she remained upright, unlike me, but I probably seemed more panicked that my lovely new leggings were okay. For someone as clumsy as me, it's a wonder I've not had more slip, trips and falls. I'm going to sympathise with Steph here. Slip, trips and falls are always going to feel really embarrassing, even when there's no one else involved or in the vicinity. Even the tumble I took at the beginning of my own story was embarrassing enough. Not that anyone is around to see it, but you just feel the shame and embarrassment as you kind of pick yourself up, dust yourself down and look around to make sure no one just saw what happened. I'm going to move on now to Colin Galbraith. He's up next, possibly to the embarrassment of his wife. But here we go with number 2 of the number 2s. Hey mate, I saw you were looking for embarrassing stories. This is my worst. Feel free to use it. My wife will kill me for admitting that I've been caught out a few times needing number 2 a few kilometres into a long run. I'd read Ailish McColgan's advice to always pack loo paper and it seemed like good advice, so I always do. Anyway, last year I got caught short running through a local estate and had to duck into some trees and take care of business. It wasn't until after I finished that I turned around and realised I'd whipped down my shorts and crouched in front of one of those motion activated nature cams you can buy off Amazon tied to a tree. Wished I'd removed the SD card as I ran off, imagining some poor old chap sitting down to watch the local forest creatures on his laptop, only to see me lowering my hairy arse into position. I don't blame you if you don't want to use this X-rated story, but I feel better even just typing it out. Been living with guilt for too long now. I bloody love that one. It gave me a good laugh reading it originally, and it did that time as well. Maybe the wildlife camera might have thought it was an upside down mole digging out a tunnel. Moving on to Stuart runs a lot, that he does. Stuart Rowan. Stuart said that during his absolute flyer at Florence in the marathon, that the crotch of his shorts actually came away. Thankfully, he had something underneath. That's a testament to how fast you were running, Stuart, burning out your shorts. Just imagine, I've got to make a rude joke there, but I can't, Stuart. I'm glad you had something underneath, mate. Let's stick with the more tame stories as we move on to our friend Patrick Watkins. Pat tripped on a flat sidewalk and fell, skidding into a parked car. I bet that one was one of those sly looks around as well to see if anyone had noticed before brushing yourself off and quickly moving along from the situation right there, wasn't it, Pat? The running girls slid into the responses with this cracker as well. I'm not sure if it was Annie or Lauren. Maybe it was an unfortunate timing for them both, but here we go. My bra strap burst at the top of Arthur's seat. That rundown was an interesting one. Short and sweet there, but oofties. I can imagine there was some interesting looks from others on the trail that day. Hopefully you weren't too battered and bruised. It does make me think of a similar story I heard from a female comedian who'd said she was lucky not to give herself 2 black eyes. Jim Boyle is sharing 2 that I feel that we can all empathise, sympathise, all the thighs is with. Firstly, he said, getting to a park run and discovering your shorts are on the wrong way round. Been there. It's in the same category as having the odd pair of socks on or finding a pair of pants up your sleeve of your running jacket mid-run. Second from Jim was waving overzealously at a runner coming towards you and it being a case of mistaking identity. I hope you played that one off cool, Jim, like a friendly runner spreading joy and cheer to others. But I've done that myself, not while running, but in everyday life. And it's always going to be just that little bit embarrassing. Now, for this final one, we're completing the trilogy of poo-related stories. This time, however, I'm going to plop in the voice note I received because I wouldn't be able to replicate this one and do it justice. So let's hear from the man himself. I mentioned him earlier. It's our man in Saudi, Doug.
I'll tell you the whole story. I was out running a few years ago in Glasgow, out in the countryside, and I was about 6 miles from home, and I needed a poo stop. There was no way I was getting back without doing it. So I jumped over a dry, stained dyke, and I was squatting behind the dyke, having an emergency poo, and about a kilometre away I could see a flock of sheep. So the flock of sheep saw me, and they decided to come over to say hello. To the extent I was squatting behind this wall with my running trousers and my knickers round my ankles, having this horrible, bloody, upset tummy crap. And there's a fucking flock of sheep, and they're actually coming up and bumping their heads against me so I could pat them. I had literally, there was about 40 sheep around the mountain going, meh, meh, and I was patting these bloody sheep. And I was out with my ex-wife at the time, and she was pissing herself at the other side of the wall, because all she could see was a flock of sheep, knowing I was round behind the wall with my trousers round my ankles. All it would have taken was a policeman to turn up, and how the fuck would I have ever explained that one? There you go. That is a true story.
Fantastic. I can imagine it now. Having grown up when Babe, Pig in a City kind of style thing, was one of the trending movies, I can't help but think that the sheep were trying to talk to Doug as they were harassing him for a pet. But there we have it. A great selection of embarrassing stories from the community, or at least those who were brave enough to share their stories. Nobody specifically asked to be kept anonymous, or at least I hope they didn't and I've missed it. A massive shout to everyone who submitted though, you're all amazing. I don't think I could in any way segue that in a flattering way to our guest interview, so I'll line up a brand new question and cover my week in running before we hop on over to the chat we had with Serena. Okay, first, the question. With the race season starting to kick off now that March is upon us, let's talk about shoes. After the success I found from upgrading from a standard road racing shoe to a carbon plated shoe, I want to know who has and who hasn't bitten the bullet and bought into the carbon shoe club. Share your thoughts, your shoe choices, and your experiences on this one in the question box and in the DMs. Come Monday, I will obviously be getting the question box up into the stories. So you can wait for that, or you can get into the DMs right away. Just remember as well, you can submit a question if there's anything you'd like to put to the listener base for information or for funny responses. They're open as well. So just let me know if you have a question and I will put that to the audience. Running wise, I've kept my week fairly tame on distance and effort to give myself the best chance of getting anywhere near my target on Sunday. Being honest here, I have a lot of self-doubt again on this one, but if the 10k in October and the marathon at Amsterdam also in October are anything to go by, it's probably the best feeling to have. I'm not going into the half marathon overly confident or setting myself up for failure. I'll just see how the day goes. So, like I say, it's been easy pace, sexy runs for me, carb loading, at actually preparing for an effort rather than just treating it like any other week and hitting a half on a Sunday like I do most weeks. Setting myself up for success, but appreciate the result will be what it'll be on the day. Now I have cleared the slate, let's move on to our fabulous guest. This week we have another super inspiring guest to add to the collection of those who have come before, and someone I could easily have chatted to for hours and in fact did after we finished the recording. She is another ultra marathon runner and one with some serious achievements under her belt at the holy grail of ultra distance events, the UTMB series. There's no stopping her though, as she looks ahead to some crazy challenges later in the year, or at least they would be to me. She'll likely do them in her sleep and look as fresh as a daisy at the end of it. You'll rarely see her without a lovely smile on her face, which remained the case throughout our chat. But let's hop over and hear from the lady herself as we welcome the delightful Serena Broadway to the show. I have another new face to the guest hot seat today. Someone who is rarely seen without a great big smile, even after she's put herself through kilometres worth of punishment. We seem to be collecting ultra runners this season, and our guest today can easily brag about completing many of the events she has under her belt. Although we've not had much time in person to interact, I know she'll be super humble with everything she's accomplished so far and play down many of her achievements. But as a mother, an ambassador for both Solomon Running and Ultra X, and as a member of the Black Trail Runners, not forgetting daily life and everything else along the way, I'm sure we won't be short of things to talk about. Let's not hesitate any longer as we do just that and get chatting with this super inspirational lady who makes crazy running distances look like a walk in the park. She's another AH3 miler, as Chris Evans would probably like me to mention. Welcome to the show, the highly requested Serena Broadway. There we go. How are you getting on?
Well done. I'm good. Yeah, finished a day of work. Doing all right. No running so far, but let's see. I'll maybe try and get out, or if not, early tomorrow morning.
The night's still young, but you might be turning your emails back on again, you were saying so.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and I tend to like to do morning runs. I think if I don't, I like a morning run because then you kind of feel like you've done it. If you keep waiting, it's like something that you need to do. And it's not like running's a chore, but it's just like then something else comes up, which then means, oh, no, I better do that. And then you start to prioritize the other things. And then if the kids are home, that's it. It kind of gets kiboshed.
And it depends on how work's gone as well. Yesterday, I went for a run and the day kind of slowly dipped down and I just felt a bit flat. Loved it. Great to get out, but yeah, maybe the best thing to do in the morning. I'm just lazy. I don't like getting out of my bed.
I used to be like that, and then I had 2 children, and then I was like, oh, well, I'm up now. What can I do?
For the next 18 years, this is my life.
Oh no, apparently when they get to teenagers, I'll be trying to get them up. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, you're all well otherwise though. You've had a good few couple of weeks here with running, or is it here, there?
I'm not gonna lie, I've changed roles a bit at work and kind of taken on a bit of line management, a bit of leadership, which is great, and I really enjoy it. But it's just finding my feet with that as men and kids clubs changing, that it's been quite difficult to prioritize the running all the time. And I didn't have races in for a long time. And I know lots of people find that if you have a race, it really focuses where you're training, and then you can visualize why I'm doing this. And I do like just going out for runs, but if you do have a race to focus, it just kind of gets you in the mood. So yeah, it's been a bit tricky. I have had a lovely run at the weekend with my pals.
Saw that. It looked really good.
Cloud inversion and everything. So it was beautiful up in the Pentlands on Sunday. But yeah, and then followed with coffee and cake. So it doesn't get any better than that. So no, I've had some really lovely kind of group runs, and I do love. I love people joining people for runs and just chatting along the trails. So yeah.
You're in the best place for it though, and as a member of the EH3, and you're a member of quite a few different groups though. Black Trail Runners, EH3. I noticed another couple, Trail Pursuit, and is there a couple of Edinburgh ones? So you've got plenty of opportunities for social outings, and as an ultra runner as well, eating cake at the end of it. That must be the bonus.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm in it for the snacks and the cakes. I am a hobbit as well and have second breakfast. So people do ask me that, like when I get up early. If I get up early, and I might have like a crumpet or a bagel with peanut butter and jam before my run. And I'm a bit of a weirdo, and I can eat and run quite quickly afterwards, I think, because ultra running and you get used to it.
Yeah.
And then I'll come back and have my porridge, or I'll have my porridge, and then maybe an hour after my run, I will have my crumpet or my bagel. I'm a hobbit.
I was going to make a comment about your height as well, because we have met, but then I'm freakishly tall, and you're not quite as short as some of the EH3 milers. So you're more human height, if anything.
I am very, no, was very aware when we met. So I was like, well, there is a bit of a height
Height
difference.
differential, isn't there? It's very low, thin air up here sometimes as well. Um, but I think the best place to start is the same as we start with most people. A little bit of background as to your history with sport, how far back it goes, and how you've kind of come to the point you're at now. Because as I said before we hit record, ultras, I'd be very surprised if anyone just went straight into ultras, although sometimes you're kind of made to believe that. But if you give a little bit of history about yourself and where you've kind of started it.
Yeah, sure. So I'm not actually, you can tell from my accent, from Scotland. So I actually grew up in Portsmouth. Yeah, so quite far.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose I was one of those kids that was okay at most sports. I wasn't great at any of them, I would say, but I was in the school hockey team. I really enjoyed doing that when I was in senior school, but not to any great level. And then after that, I suppose I was doing the gym. But what really kind of changed for me and being outside, and done things like at university, did rowing and just dabbled in sports and squash. Okay, not great, just enjoyed doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I met my boyfriend, now husband, he was really into outdoor pursuits and hiking and stuff. So I started to join him on that, and then we moved up to Scotland. I moved to do a PhD at Glasgow, and we started to bag Munros. So we started to do that. So if people don't know, there are hills over 3,000 feet in Scotland. So we did a bit of that. I haven't got tons. I don't know, maybe in the 20s, 30s.
Than I do.
But then we were going, we are spoilt in Scotland. I mean,
Yeah.
I've lived in Glasgow and I've lived in Edinburgh, and you can go, I mean, if you want to do the Munros, 2 hours and you're in the Highlands, really are spoilt that you can do this kind of thing. So we were doing that for a while, and we got into bike touring. So we did a bit of that. So I did what is now the North Coast 500. Before it was the North Coast 500. Did
Cool.
biking up the Hebrides and things like that. But just not like super fast, but just as a way to see parts of Scotland. So yeah, I like that you're making progress, but in a way that you can still observe like the landscape and scenery, unlike a car where you're kind of going to a destination.
You can fly past some things and not even know that a little ruin or a historical site is even there.
Yeah, so we did a lot of that, and then we had 2 children, but the first one was Ella. So it was quite funny. We went to Shetland, and I was pregnant but did not know it at the time. And I had been doing loads of spin classes, so I was like, this is it. Shetland's going to be my trip where I'm really strong. And I was so tired, and Andrew was slipstreaming me, and he's looking at me like, why? And I was like, I just have no energy. And I remember like hiring a car for the last day to do some bits that we couldn't do on bike. And he was like, Serena, there's an amazing view of a cliff. And I was like, take a picture. I'm staying in the car. And then I was like, I don't know what's wrong. And we got back, I took a test. I was like, oh.
Explains a lot, doesn't it?
That explains it. So yeah. So that's kind of how I kind of got into enjoying being outside and outdoors. But then yeah, Ella was born, and I was quite happy to be a mum that's kind of walked to the cake shop or walked in towns. I did loads of walking, but kind of exercise and everything kind of slowed down for me a bit. I didn't really mind not doing as much. And I know so it's different for everyone. So some people are like, that's their kind of escape from kind of that get your time back is to go out and do a run or a walk or whatever. But I was quite happy. But then I had Kira. I really felt like, no, I think I need to do something. So I thought, oh, I don't know, could do running. All you need is a pair of trainers, as everyone says, and I can do it whenever I want. So I'm not bound to, I want to go to that class, and if someone's kicking off or whatever, that I can do it when I want. But I did actually join a social running club, which is no longer running, but called Edinburgh All Runners, and did like a couch to 5K.
I did. That's the one I was thinking of. I did see Edinburgh All Runners, but they don't exist anymore.
Yeah,
It's a
they don't
shame.
exist. So yeah, we used to meet up and do different sessions, and I did their couch to 5K, and then oh, I can run 5K. That's great. And then they would be talking about half marathons. I was like, crazy. Why would you even do that? So then I did like 5K races, did the Mo run around Holyrood, and I think I may have done a 10K, did Clomathon. People in Edinburgh will recognize these as
Yeah,
events that
yeah.
kind of everyone does. And then 2019 or for 2020, I thought, oh, maybe I will do a marathon. I'm going to sign up for Copenhagen Marathon. I'm going to go to Copenhagen in
It's a lovely place to
2020.
go. Hmm.
Good place to go. We can go as a family. I'm gonna do a marathon. And COVID, something to say about that. And actually, I would say that is probably the best thing that never happened to me, that not doing a marathon. I think if I had done that, I think I would have probably, I think as a runner, if you want to challenge yourself, is either distance or pace. You're like
Yeah.
distance or yeah, that's your if you want to kind of push yourself. And unfortunately, a marathon didn't happen. But what did happen was doing challenges with Edinburgh All Runners so that we could still feel part of the club. So we did things like logging our miles and doing Land's End to John O'Groats as a team. And then Rat Race had, oh, I can't remember what the race is called. But they used to have an event where you'd do like laps and you'd get like bands for every 5 kilometers, but they turned that into a virtual event.
Mm.
And so I looked and it was like, oh, well, on my marathon plan, because I was still naively thinking maybe I might get to do that.
Yeah.
I had like 30K on. So I thought, well, if I do 10K in the morning, on a Friday, 10K in the afternoon, and if I do 30K on the Saturday, or maybe I can get to 50, maybe 60. And then that was the point where we could meet up. So some of the all runners were doing laps. So I thought, oh, I'll join them. And then I went home and I'd made a roast dinner. I was eating the roast dinner, and I think I got to about 70 something K. And I was like, oh, for a weekend, that's really good.
Yeah.
And then I looked at it and I was like, oh, the top band's 85. Only 13K off that. So I had my roast dinner and then I went out and ran 13K so I could get, yeah, don't do that, people.
No, not a heavy meal anyway.
It's not nice. But I did it and I was like, And then I started to explore the trails, started to go up a bit more in the Pentlands first with people, and then feeling more confident with the routes and doing things on my own. And that's kind of how I started to get into trail running, and it all kind of tumbled from there.
Do you think if COVID hadn't happened and you'd run Copenhagen, that you would have then been a tar runner, or do you think it was inevitable? Did you always have, because of your the style of trying to impress your partner by accompanying him outside, that you might have naturally kind
I
of
think
gone that way anyway?
I may have, and I suppose Andrew is my biggest cheerleader and probably realizes the things I can do before
Yeah.
I do them. And he did give me, there's a book called Runner by a person called Lizzie Hawkers, and she won UTMB, the whole 165-kilometer race, several times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he kind of put that in my kind of like, oh, maybe you could find out about this race and maybe that would be quite interesting. And I was like, I will never do any of those races. Those people are mad.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is definitely something with showing what is possible. I mean, he said things like that about the Pentland Skyline, which is a route in the Pentlands. It's 29. I'm gonna get told off if I get this wrong, isn't it? But I think it's 27 kilometers, and
Lee
it's like,
might disown you.
he will disown me if I get this wrong, but I know it's 1,900 meters of elevation, so it's around of all the kind of peaks, or the main peaks in the Pentlands. And Andrew said, oh, you'll be doing the skyline next. I was like, no, I won't. And then I did it. So he did. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely yeah, they could have been that I
Either
kind of
you
like got into the time.
you either underestimate yourself or he's some sort of wizard and can tell the future.
Mm.
You see that a lot though, kind of going back to you're saying the marathon was the best thing to not happen.
Yeah.
And you do see that with anyone that's running marathons, they quickly learn whether marathon running is for them or not. And if it's not, they either stop running, they move the trails, or if it is for them, they stick. And like myself, it's about chasing time, like you said, it's about chasing time over that distance. And then you have the people go, nah, sod that. I'm going to go to the trails where it's about having fun. It's not necessarily about time, it's about the challenge, and it's about having a good feed along the way.
Yeah. I think I've only ever been asked once what my time was for an ultra, and that was by a marathon runner. No one, everyone else goes 50 kilometers. Are you mad? No one goes, and what time did you do that in?
Yeah.
And it's it's the same with road, but if you get it, the routes change. You can't compare one trail race with another. It's really difficult to do that because some can be a bit flatter, the terrain's different, it's rocky, it's muddy, so it's probably a nice thing because then you do the next one, and if you're a bit slower, it's like, oh well, the terrain was a bit harder.
The weather was drier, so it was hotter, or it was a bit wet. And yeah,
you see where I'm coming from, right?
That's a good way of doing it. It's a very good way of doing it.
Legitimate
escape routes.
Exactly.
You're right. I don't think I've ever really heard anyone say what their time is when they complete an ultra, and you see it on the timelines. I completed this ultra. You don't scroll down and go, the time was this. It might be a couple of days later, they might say, oh, actually, I did it in this time, but nobody's going, like, let's see your watch then. It's because of the distances you're doing, no matter how long you're taking, congratulations, pat on the back.
Yeah, and I've been at the end of races, and professional runners who have done it in half the time that I've done it have been like, oh my God, I can't believe you spent 24 hours or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, almost in awe of the people that take longer to do it. Because I was done within 10 hours. I don't understand how you guys do it. And I was like, I don't understand how you do it in 10 hours.
Well, again, in comparison to, excuse me, sorry, in comparison to marathon runners, sure, a lot of the elites will say they have a lot of, I'm trying to think of the right word here, but they look at the people at the back and go, how can they spend that amount of time running? It's not pride in them, you know what I mean? But they're obviously done it in their 2 hours 30, their 3 hours, they're super fast. And then to think of someone having to run for 7 hours, same with the elite runners in ultras. You can be as fast as you want, but then if you're double their time, you're putting in so much more effort.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think we could move then to some of the events that you've done. The ones that I've seen, so you've corrected me here with one of them, because UTMB, the series at Mont Blanc, so you've the OCC.
Yep.
But you've also got Nice, and naively I looked at those, went, they're in France, they must be the same event. It must be a long run. Get over the top. You've got the Sullivan Skyline. You've mentioned the Rat Race Ultra Tour of Edinburgh, which I didn't know existed until Gary mentioned it, and then to have yourself having done that as well. When we connected, I think you'd either just done or just about to do the relay across Scotland as a quartet. But they're not the only ones. You've got so many events on your list that I was scrolling through going, will I write that one down? Will I write that one down? And it's just like, I'm going to ask Serena what her highlights have been so far, and maybe what some of the biggest challenges have been.
Yeah, that's quite interesting you say that, because I feel like I limit myself to 2 or 3 races a year. I feel that's what's achievable without being a pressure to me. So that's quite interesting that you think I've done quite a lot, because I feel like in that time I've maybe not done as much as other people that I've seen, but that's a different choice, and we've all got different things to deal with in our personal
Yeah,
life
we
as
have
well
different
as
priorities. Yeah.
so I think the first one would be Ultra X Scotland because that was the first ultra I did. And it was
So is that the Ultra X Scotland that's up here?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I did the 50K and I want to say it was in 2021, May 2021. And
It's a glorious weekend in that one.
yeah, so it was still, I think we were doing staggered starts. So it was like every 30 seconds or every 10 seconds someone went. But there was, I was just, I had those start line kind of flutters and got really nervous, as everyone does, because you're doing something that's pushing yourself. And if you don't feel that, it's usually excitement and fear. If you don't feel that, then maybe it's not the right event.
Yeah.
Or you're not. Yeah. If that's why you do races, and some of the events I do because I want to do it with the people, and other ones is like, can I do this?
Yeah.
So that was great because yeah, I did my first ultra. It was a beautiful day. The course was great. I got to meet some brilliant people who I'm still friends with. So Alexandra, who met at the start line, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe we're doing this because she looked as nervous as me. I was like, I know, it's really. And then she came and found me and said, oh, if you're ever in Scotland. And I was like, ha ha ha, I live in Edinburgh. So yeah, we've done things together. So that was great. And it also gave me points to be able to do OCC. So the system was different when I qualified for OCC. So you could do races across the UK and they would give you a number of points to be able to enter into any of the UTMB races.
Okay.
So I did that one, an Ultra X summer series in Yorkshire. That gave me 4 points. 4 points with 2 races meant I could go into OCC. And first time in the ballot, and I got picked. And then after that is when they changed to having had to do do their races, collecting stones. And it makes it a lot more difficult to be able to get in. So it was, yeah, pure kind of luck to get in, and an experience I don't think I'll ever forget. But so yeah, those two Ultra X races allowed me to do that. And I think in that year I also did Rat Race Edinburgh, which was brilliant because, like I said, sometimes you do races to push yourself, and other times you do it because of the people you're doing it with. And I ran that with my good friend Helen, who was someone we'd met through doing Carla's SCY program. So she does strength and conditioning and yoga. So we chatted, I'm in Edinburgh, you're in Edinburgh. So we kind of chatted and never actually properly met. We kind of chatted behind the scenes on Instagram. Like she'd done some ultras, so I was cheering her on and she was doing the same for me. And they were like, oh, should we do this together? And it turns out that we actually ran the same speed, had half an hour snack breaks. Our watches both went and I was like, oh, that's my snack break. And she went, oh, me too. So we had a great time doing that race. Because it kind of, you go up into the Pentlands, you go and do a couple of hills, and then you come back along the Water of Leith, and then make your way up to along kind of the rail passes, back up to the Commie Pool. So that race was just 6.5 hours with someone who became a friend, who became a best friend. So that was, yeah, running has given me a lot of friends that I'm forever grateful. And we'd never have met if it hadn't been for running. And then OCC was just because we went for the whole week. It was a family. We're going to go for a family holiday. We're going to Chamonix. I have a little race in the middle, and and we'll have a good time.
Just a little race in the middle.
Tiny little race in the middle. But if no one's experienced it, it is like no other race really I've been to. Like the finish line is in the middle of Chamonix. And there are races that go on throughout. So UTMB there's a group of races and they go out throughout the whole week, culminating in UTMB where they do the Tour de Mont Blanc. And I would go in to do things like pick up my number or stuff, or we go in and you see people come across the finish line. I'd be in tears. I was like, I don't even know these people, but I know that I can see in their face this means so much to them to finish this race. Yeah. I was like, God, I'm really, really invested in this. So yeah, that was, yeah, we went up in the gondola, did walks. I mean, the worst preparation ever if you wanted to do well in a race.
Don't walk for miles. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the day before, I looked at my watch. The kids were doing the children's races, which were epic, by the way, because they all have like theme music for each race. And the kids' races, they had like the equivalent. So there was equivalent, if you're this age, you do the equivalent of OCC. And if you're this age, and they had like the theme music and they were running for like 400 meters. You'd think that it was unbelievable. But I was in the middle of Chamonix in a field. It was 20 odd degrees. I was sweating buckets. I had walked 18,000 steps. And I'm like, I've got to do a 50K tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it's not flat. I'm like, what am I doing? So I was like, yeah. And the girls had gone into Chamonix, and because the finish line is there, they were doing their practices. This is how we're gonna cross the line when we get mummy's hands and we go. And I'm like, the pressure of finishing. Every time I was like running, when I was running the race and we were going down, I was like, don't stack it, don't roll your ankle. The girls they want their 10 meters of glory, don't,
You might need them as crutches.
don't roll your ankles, because this is not about me. This is their moment to cross the finish line. So I was just, there was a bit of pressure on that. But the experience of running that race, you have, because it's such a big thing, you have loads of people on this sideline, they're cheering you on, like you got, massive crowds, coming out, saying courage and super. I'm like, yeah, I'm trying. Have you seen the size of the hill I've got to go up? And then you do like the last hill, and then there's the descent into Chamonix, and I'm like, you were like, and then when you got to the bit, you're like, I know we've been around this bit of the town, I know where we are, I'm nearly there. And actually connected with, because so many people are racing it but they go to experience it, I did bump into and connect to quite a few people that either I chatted to on Instagram or other things, but actually hadn't met. So that was the first time I'd met Sabrina Pace-Humphreys from Black Trail Runners, and also Sunny as well from Black Trail Runners. And we got to connect, and some other people that I, again, had messaged or we'd had chats, but I'd not actually seen. So it was, just a week. And I think, if I ask the girls, like, what holiday, they will say Chamonix. And it's not because of the race, because I did on the Friday say, should we go and watch the start of UTMB, which is a huge thing. I think we've done the running thing now, was the comment that came back. And I was like, okay.
You might want to see it, because it's UTMB. I'm right in thinking, from the way that Jimmy Bunter had outlined it a couple of weeks ago, it's equivalent to the marathon majors, isn't it? It's like the top cream of the crop, creme de la creme of ultra running.
Yeah, it really is. And the changes in the rules and the stones and everything it is a barrier for people to be able to go and do them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult, but it is an amazing event. And I've never been to anything like it. So do
you think there's a backdoor entry into it, though? So for anyone that would like to experience it, it's the same with the majors. I believe there's a backdoor entry where you can pay a premium and guarantee yourself a slot. And there are not very many of these.
Wonder if that's coming. I wouldn't,
you wouldn't rule it out.
You are, because for those that don't know, you need to do a UTMB race to get at least one stone to enter. Mm-hmm. It's like a stone is like a lottery ticket, I suppose.
Okay.
If you think of it that way. So you are pretty much buying your lottery ticket if you think about it. So last year I did Nice, which was a UTMB race, and that was to hopefully get into the ballot this year, but I didn't manage it.
So it's almost like their way of saying, you've committed to us already, we might let you run the big shiny event at the end of the season. It did look really good, though, from all the photos that you had up, and certainly because it is the golden goose of the event series. It's got all the cameras, it's got all the pride and all the cheering, and that finishing photo where you're underneath the arch. It looks really good, and especially I think it makes it even better because it was quite late on by the time you finished as well, wasn't it? It was quite dark.
Yeah, there was a lot. So what's weird is when you're doing these races, and I obviously turned off my notifications for WhatsApp and stuff, and then especially because that was such a big race, um, it's really well supported. So they have like a YouTube channel so you can follow people and you can see the people that you're following cross the line. And then I
Mhm.
get back and I'm looking through and like nice messages, and then there's a whole thread with some of my friends. There's gonna because there was the ceremony for the finishers at 7 o'clock. And then I think there was an advert just before I was about to finish. And Andrew said in his mind, he was like, could I say to Serena, could you just pause for 30 seconds until this advert's finished? Because people at home want to see you cross the line. And he's like, and I was wondering how that would go down. And I was like, I mean,
Oh, if it's not about time, you could wait around the corner.
yeah, just park yourself for 30 seconds and let's wait. So there was a lot of when is this advert gonna finish? Serena's just about to cross the line. So yeah, it is like so people can properly follow you. They're not following a dot, they can actually see you cross the line. And they do have cameras at the aid stations as well. So I was like waving to and you get all that in a video. So they put it all together, stitch it all together. So you've got all the videos of you going into the aid stations, crossing the line, and everything like that.
And anyone that's there with you can see what sort of state you are in mentally as well. I think, is it going to be another
Yeah,
10 minutes?
when the wave is really
Mm,
enthusiastic at the beginning, and then at the end it's just like, yes, I'm still here.
head down, but it's acknowledgement. Oh,
Exactly.
so you had the girls running there and the family as a whole. Is it something that they've got an interest in? Is there more running on the cards for them? Do you think it'll be a good inspiration for them in the future?
I think what I want to show them is that if you find something that lights your fire, that you will find the space to do it, and
Mhm.
it will bring you things that you don't expect it to bring you. So I'm not necessarily like, we're all a family of runners. If anything, they prefer a bike at the moment. My husband
Mhm.
is definitely winning that at the moment. But I just want to show them that getting outside and being active is a good thing to do. And
Yeah.
my eldest does say that when I've been a bit nippy, maybe a little bit tired, or I say something, she's like, do you need to go for a run? And I'm a bit like, oh, maybe I've been a bit, maybe that was a bit over the top or something. But
Yeah.
actually, I like that she recognizes that for me, running really helps. Like it's either, I sometimes when working and actually there's something I can't quite work out, I'm like, I'll go for my run now. And it
Yeah.
gives you either you switch off and don't think about it and come back refreshed, or because you have that time and actually you can sit and work it out. There's no other kind of there's no more
Yeah. There's no
calls,
external kind of, yeah.
external kind of things coming to you. You can kind of focus on that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I want them to enjoy being outside. I want them to hopefully find whatever it is that lights their
They're
fire.
releasing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But
Because
it's not running.
I'd
Not yet,
imagine you'd be
anyway.
like myself when you were younger. It was hard to kind of pin down something that was a release, and I think that's why a lot of youngsters end up going to music because angsty teenagers listen to loud, shouty music, and that seems to be it gets surpassed, and for a lot of youngsters now it is phones and gaming um, but to give them the it's okay to be outside philosophy. It's okay to get fresh air and it's also very good for the mind as well. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no better route there. With family life though, do you find it difficult sometimes to juggle dropping the kids off at different classes and picking them up, trying to fit in a run, having work and just everything that goes into family life?
Yes, it is. And I often use juggle because I know people talk about balance and I don't think that exists. I think sometimes you have to be right, actually, I need to get this run done. So I'm not going to be able to do something for the parent council or something,
Mm-hmm.
like so and then sometimes it's actually no, right now there's a lot going on family wise and running is going to have to take a back seat. That's I tend not to run late November to December because Christmas and everything that goes on then, it's just not it it's not going to happen. And I don't mind missing some runs, but it gets to you after a while, and that's just a period I know that I'm not going to be able to do it all. So I definitely do that. I mean, I tend to like I said, get up early, go for runs. I'm lucky that I work compressed hours, so I do have a Friday off. And for those of you have children in Edinburgh will know that they have a half day on a Friday as well. So I have the mornings, so I will go and like drop the girls off and then I tend to do my long runs on a Friday.
Yeah, if you've got the time to do it and it's a
So
clear
I
spell.
so I do things like that. If they've got classes, oh, Ella's got gymnastics right near Drumbury Hill, which is hideous but good for hill reps. So, if I know I'm going to be there, I'll put my hill rep session there. So, yeah, I'll do things like that. I've even done things where I've got a really long run. I will break it up. So maybe do 2 hours in the morning and then have a day and then do 3 hours in the evening or 2 hours in the evening if that's what's on there. But I've still done the time on my feet. I've just not done it consecutively. But you just have to, it's really difficult. And everyone has these different pressures, caring responsibilities. And I think part of it is also understanding that sometimes a run slips, but that's okay. And to be kind of kind to yourself and not put, I do this for fun. So I don't want to put the pressure on myself to like get it all done, and it's not fun because I'm not a professional. This is my hobby, so I do it for that. So I definitely try and cut myself a bit slack. I do get my programs written for me, so
it's cheating.
All right then.
Sorry.
So Carla Molinaro writes my program. So usually I'm able to hit them and do them. And I have said to her, because I knew the new role and everything, that would be more tricky. So I have said to her, prioritize. Can you tell me what sessions are priorities, and I will try and get them done.
Yeah.
So things like that. And like I understand, like I'm in a privileged position that I can pay for someone to do a plan.
Yeah.
But it does devolve one thing that on my plate that I can do. And I just have the sessions and then I can look at what the whole family schedule is and then slot them in.
Because if you were writing your own plan, that it's not going to be a 10-minute job, especially as an ultra runner. It's talking hours of trying to work out what distances you need, what's best for you. But if you have someone who knows what you need to do, and it's going to take them 20 minutes to write a plan because that's what they're doing, then
and they probably put sessions in there that it's a good job. Carla's smiley, and I like her, and she likes cake, because sometimes I look at a session and I'm like, you are kidding me. But then you do it afterwards, and actually you do feel pretty epic once you've done, however many hill reps or interval sessions or whatever it is. And I think I probably wouldn't maybe push myself as hard as she does. So yeah.
We're going to shift focus slightly now, because I'm obviously conscious on time, especially with family. I don't want to be another kind of obstacle to overcome. And we're going to cover something that we've already mentioned, the Black Trail Runners. But I'm going to add in a couple of caveats here as well. So you've mentioned about being south of the border beforehand and coming up. So that's an extra curveball. I didn't mention it beforehand. Of course, there's a certain amount of people when they hear a certain accent that it can trigger them to be a little bit more less than nice, should we say. But take into account that and some of the incidents that have been happening against female runners more recently, or seemingly increasing. They've probably been taking place anyway, but there's at least more notice and more publicity on it, which is great because it's putting a spotlight on something that shouldn't be happening. But moreover, because of the Black Trail Runners as well, have you experienced any, I don't want to say as much as hatred, have you had much experience on being a female runner, obviously being an English runner, but also being a Black runner in Scotland?
So I think I would say I've been lucky with my experiences in adult life.
Okay.
I would, if anyone was looking to maybe learn a bit more about this, the situation that or these scenarios that they're not familiar with. Sabrina Pace Humphreys, who's one of the founders of Black Trail Runners, has written a book called Black Sheep. When I read this book, and we were talking behind the scenes, she's like, "Take your time, you might find it triggering," and a lot of the things in her childhood I could resonate with, and it was quite interesting. I was like, "Oh, being I think she may have been the only person of color in her school.
Yeah.
My school, there was me and there was another two kids. We were brother and sister. So depending on where we were in the school cycle, there may have been one of us or there may have been three of us, but still in a massive kind of secondary school. So, and I was bullied at school and but I think if people want to read like and about kind of and she's actually had things in instances races.
Mhm.
For me, the things that happen. So when I went to OCC, there's a big presence of lots of big brands, and then you're really struck by the kinds of people that they're marketing to and what their marketing looks like. And you sometimes feel like, do I belong here? Am I welcome here?
Yeah.
And
There's
I think
not as much diversity as there should necessarily be in modern
no,
society.
no. And I talk from great privilege. I have the Pentlands on my doorstep. There is limited barriers to me getting out there, but I am very aware that there are other barriers, not, for a lot of people.
Mm.
I think the only one incident I can think of when I was running was me and Helen were running in the Pentlands, and we were going on a low, well, we were on a low trail, and then we were going to go up a hill. But we went past another hill, and one guy said to us, "Oh, don't go up there. It's hilly."
Almost,
And I did.
almost like a mansplainer.
I was like, uh-huh, And I was just wanted to be like, "Do you know what a route is?" And then, the Alps. Didn't do that, but I was just like you don't know, like, people's experiences and that was I was very taken aback by someone thinking that they could.
Yeah, and it comes down to the way he said it as well, though. It may just be that he has really bad social cues and person skills where he's just meant it in a jokey way.
Yeah,
But yeah, if you're not good with people, don't say anything.
no, I was flipping raging
Yeah, I can
when he said
imagine.
that. But yeah, I think my kind of take home to as being part of Black Trail Runners, I did one of the Spine races. So for people that don't know, Spine is a race that's 286 miles up the Pennine Way. I did not do that one. I did the
You did the
sprint.
summer sprint. Yeah,
The
I've got
sprint.
a, I've got a note about this. That's not a sprint.
It is. It is 46 miles, totally a sprint. That was my mantra. I was running only a sprint, only a sprint. To kind of,
Shane Bolt was doing that one.
yeah, totally. Um, and but it was part of a group of runners from Black Trail Runners, and we were doing the different races. And as part of that, Black Trail Runners had put different posts about the different people doing the different races. And I, on my post, a couple of people from London, from Camino Ultra kind of group, which is a running community in London, had said, "Oh, we're going to be at the youth hostel. If you see us, let us know. We're going to be there." And the more the journey I go on with this is the allyship, is people
Mhm.
realizing I don't know what it's like, but I can help that person that's in that situation to feel like they belong,
Yeah.
and they. I saw them at the youth hostel. I spent hours with them because the race doesn't start till midday. So we were there, and I just felt welcomed, and I have other friends that understand the things that I'm going through
Yeah.
and are allies and advocates for that, not just myself, but other people that are going through that, and will call that out. So I suppose, and there is a part in Sabrina's book about how to be a good ally. It's recognizing and calling out things when you see it. So if
Yeah.
you're in a race and you think that's not representative of the people that should be doing or could be doing this race, asking them, have you thought of using other images?
Mhm.
Asking them if they've thought about the access that they can give to people. So that for me has made me feel like I'm welcome. Like Black Trail Runners gives us a community of Black trail runners, but the allies are as important for me to help make a change within the
Yeah.
community.
Raising awareness as well. There's a similar vein to I can't remember what episode he was now, but when I had my cousin Michael on and the front runners, it's the same thing with the LGBTQ plus community having not only a safe space, because it's not just for LGBTQ plus, it's for allyship as well, and feeling that you have that camaraderie and support there, and it's not just a case of, let's say, it's going to be a racist view of black trail runners. Oh, it's just black people doing black things and feeling like they have to have a little group. No, it's not that at all. And it's the same with LGBTQ plus. I sometimes find that you could probably imagine in the Highlands, there's not a massive, or growing up, there wasn't a massive black community.
Yeah.
Very, very rarely did you see a different skin tone to Casper the Friendly Ghost here. It has been increasing recently when we've got more refugees coming in. We've got more just natural immigration, and there's a lot of darker skin tones arriving. Sometimes I feel like I know I'm not racist. Sometimes I feel like it's still out of the ordinary. You don't want to feel like you're staring, but you also want to include them, but you don't want to feel like you're then just included in because of their skin tone. So it's maybe a book that I need to read as well on allyship and inclusion without necessarily going out of your way to do it.
Yeah, and I think it's I think one thing, and I think Sunny was on another podcast. I was like, oh, he feels the same as me. Like, you know, um, I grew up in a very white area, so I can talk to my experience of being black, but in a white area.
Yeah.
And there's other people that have different experiences from me, living in different areas, experiencing different things.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it is just that making sure people feel welcome, and that is on the races as well as the people attending the races.
Yeah.
But
And
it
the
is
branding
sometimes,
towards them as well.
yeah, and the branding, because sometimes you go in there and you're like, oh, whoa. And ultra racing as well would say some of the races, the like even the number of women doing it is low. Um, so yeah.
I find we'll draw a line on this in a second, but I do find it sometimes when you're getting an ambassadorship with some of the companies, it's less about inclusivity and more about how many followers does that person have, and the person who manages the ambassadorships is just going, I'll get more publicity by getting that person, and not going, oh, maybe I should try and spread the net a little bit more. I might encourage more people of different ethnicities to get involved in the sport
Yeah.
if they see, oh, I can relate to that person.
Yeah, I mean, I think I can't remember how I came across Sabrina, but it would have been that like she looks like me, which it sounds mad, but when you see,
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
connections.
And also, like, I think kind of goes back from school where all the girls had swishing ponytails, and I was like, I don't have one of those. Does that mean I can't run? But I think it is important, and I think there are a lot of if you're wanting to learn more, go to Black Trail Runners is an open community for people, and it really helps the community to grow, to make the impact that they want to by allies joining it as well.
Yeah,
But there are other communities. I would go out and find those organizations that are trying to make changes. So if I know, and these are my kind of with She Races as well, is doing a lot around female runners and making races more accessible. And
yeah,
they've done a lot around like getting deferrals for pregnancy, for example.
yes.
So I would urge people to try and seek out these
There's
organizations.
still not enough on that sort of thing. So again, more awareness, and just generally speaking, I think from a male's perspective, out for the long run yesterday, running around the streets of Inverness, you see a female runner, I change the side of the road. So it's an indication of I'm not avoiding you, but I'm giving you your space, because then it feels they might be okay with me running past them, but they might not feel comfortable with that as well. So yeah, opening up and just showing a community as well, community spirit.
Which I
Cool.
think in Scotland, I would say, and like, you know, yeah, it's a really lovely Instagram family. But do you know what I mean? Like, do you know, but I do, we get, there's a lot of positivity and celebration about different people's achievements. And then when you go to events and you're like, oh, hello. And you know, you see people and it's not standoffish as well. Wow, we only message on
Yeah.
Instagram. I'm only liking your Instagram. I'm not liking you. Um, we are lucky in Scotland. I do feel that it's a really strong runners community.
I think that's a good segue because we hadn't met until Loch Ness 24 last year. But it was almost like we'd known each other for years. You came up and spoke to me. It was tipping it down, and I think at that point it maybe stopped raining.
Had it though.
Might have.
Do you feel like you might have missold that, you and Lee?
Oh no, you saw the photos, and it's
I
going
don't
to be
know if,
lovely again this year now that Lee's not there.
for the listeners, the first year it was blistering
It
sunshine.
was too hot the first year. Too hot.
Apparently too hot. So the
Yeah.
year I went and did it, lots of drizzle, very wet, lots of mud.
But you've
But
achieved an amazing distance for the distance you've got within that condition.
I had fun.
It was a great weekend. Well, I
Yeah.
wasn't being grumpy.
But no, honestly, yeah, I and that kind of event, I just love, that's why I like doing the different kinds of events. So I like doing the ultras where I'm doing things for me
Mm.
and running. But that was, you know, I got a group of my friends that run together. We had a loose schedule of how it would go. And having that, you know, the loops is great because it makes it accessible. There were people doing ultras, there were people going, I'm going to do 4 loops, I'm going to do 2 loops, you know, or actually I was going to do 5 and now I'm doing 10. You know, people escalating things. But it de-risked it because it was loops and there
Yeah.
were other people supporting, you know.
And you didn't always need to be on the track. You could you can have an alcoholic beverage if that's your thing, or just sit and have a good company. It would have been better if the fire pits could have been on.
The music was amazing as well, by the way. The organizers did a
Yeah,
cracking job with the music.
it is a shame it was so wet because the idea of having silent disco again would have been fantastic, and I think the uptake would have been so much more than the first year of just myself, Lee, Emma. I wasn't even taking part, so it's just Emma and Lee and this random drunk guy. So it's 3 people out of quite a busy event. Again, the year before, although it's maybe not nearly as busy as last year, it would have been a great addition. So fingers crossed again this year it improves even more. But as you said, unfortunately, you might not be able to make it because there is the give and take of family life, and your husband obviously has events that he would like to do as well.
Yeah, there's definitely flags go into the calendar as soon as possible. So Andrew does lots of long distance cycle races, and so you can see it in our calendars of like, oh, I think I might do this event, and then you're like, get mine in.
He's more of a tap man. That's man after my heart. That's why I started out. I'm conscious now of time as well. So let's segue a little bit from the 24 and event that you're not doing. Do you have much on your calendar for the year ahead?
Yes, I do now. As I said, I was, well, the thing with doing the ballot for UTMB is and it's quite a quick turnaround. I think you put in December, you find out in January. But then I found out I'm on the waiting list and I'm like, pretty sure that means no, but I'll see. But I didn't get in. So I am doing, well, my main race in June is the Spines Challenger South. So that is 108 miles self-supported. I can't even say only a sprint. So yeah, so the spine doesn't have many checkpoints, so you do have to carry a lot of your own equipment. So my bag was about 6 to 8 kilos last time. It was really hot as well, so I needed to make sure I had enough fluids because I was running to the first checkpoint at Hebden Bridge, which is 46 miles. So just to give people an indication of
scary distances.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna walk lots.
Small scary distance is someone like myself.
Here I go with like underwriting, but yeah, so that's June. So the spine races are a very welcoming community. They say about the spine family, and I enjoy watching the winter one, and everyone keeps trying to get me to do. I'm not going to do it. I enjoy the dot watching of the winter one too much, but the summer one, that's I feel accessible for me. And then as part of the training for that, I'm doing 55 kilometers Dales Traverse. So that's part of the coast to coast Northern Traverse race, but a portion of that. And I'm doing that with my friend Nikki. So that's where I get my doing it with doing a race with a friend and going down there and traveling and doing that. And then in September, I'm doing the Buttermere Skyline. So Scotland Skyline's not happening this year. They're having a rest and they will be back next year, which I'm excited for. So they are hosting a race in the lakes in Buttermere. So I'm doing that. So
there'll still be a good amount of elevation there.
Oh yeah. I haven't. I don't want to look at it too much, but yeah. So it's quite a short but punchy, I would say.
There's nothing compared to running in the Alps, though.
I don't know. The thing with the Alps is it's up, 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 down, 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 which is quite nice, right? It's whereas a lot of rolling hills can be quite hard going. So yeah, those are my races in for the calendar. I don't know if I'll be doing any others or
maybe a couple of small social outings along the way as well.
Oh, there'll be lots of that. I mean, anyone that wants to go, I think my longest run in the Pentlands will be 7 hours. So if anybody fancies even a portion of that, let me know.
Fancies accompany someone that won't then get them lost.
No, we'll see. Can I just point out that Lee and I have a reputation for getting lost, but whenever we're together, we don't get lost. So 2 bad navigators makes 1 good navigator.
You're both a different side of a magnet, aren't you? That's what it is.
But every time we finish a run, we're like, and we didn't get lost. High five.
You just need pom bears at the end to keep Lee in the right direction.
And I would like to say that I don't know why we are so, so self-congratulatory when we're running in the Pentlands, which we run in all the time. I mean, take us to a new bunch of hills, and I think that's a recipe for disaster. But...
Yeah. We won't put you loose in the Cairngorms just yet.
Oh God, no.
If anyone wants to connect with you, have a little bit more of a snoop about what you've done so far, but also maybe drop you a message, where can they find you, or is the best place to find you?
Instagram. That's where I am. Pretty active. Happy to take questions, or if anyone has anything they want to know. But often,
straightforward handle as well.
Yeah, it's Serena Broadway. I think I'm not very. I mean, I got it. I'm not very creative. I think, oh, maybe I should change it. And then I have 2 minutes of thinking, what would I change it to? And then I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'll keep it as Serena Broadway. But yeah, it comes with a warning that if you do go for a run with me, I do manage to get people into some cool events. But I'm all about the snacks. So I would like to say that we did the relay across Scotland, and my whole thing was like, but I've got a box of snacks in the car. And then when we did Loch Ness, my pitch was, it's like the relay, but the snacks stay where they are. And everyone came.
It's like the relay, but you get really dizzy going around the same
loop. So yes, no, happy. Obviously very jazzy. And if anyone has any questions or
Now, finally, before I let you go, you are still running with the H3 milers. You haven't abandoned them yet?
Well, so I find it really difficult to commit to dates and times. The only day that the kids don't have something to do is a Tuesday evening. That's the only day. So
you need to find something for the kids to do.
No, they need to learn to drop an activity or two. So I really do struggle to make it to group runs. So I know Lee's been doing a lot of the trails, and I'm like, I'd love to
Yeah.
come on a Thursday. I find it much easier to meet a group of people. So poor Lee, honestly, I'm like, Lee, do you fancy coming out at 6 in the morning? He's like, yeah, I
He,
don't mind.
he doesn't sleep. He can't sleep. He's got some medical reason he doesn't sleep. So he's always up. He's up for a run anytime.
I know. So I am very lucky that I have some great friends that are willing to come and do crazy hours, crazy distances. Um, but I think the thing is if someone I offer a lot to people, oh, you should come with a run with me. I am, first of all, not a fast runner. And second of all, if I have a run where I need to hit pace or I need to do something, I wouldn't do that run with you. I am about having a chat and a run,
Yeah.
And I walk up hills. By the way, people are like, "Oh, you walk up there?"
It's
Yeah,
an ultra thing, isn't it?
yeah. I'm like, "Have you seen? Well, you have seen the size of my legs. If I run up that hill, my legs are doing like hamster wheels, and I'm getting like not even a meter up the hill. So I'm better to walk slow, walk fast, a good pace, and not expend as much energy. But I think if people are offering to go with runs with you, they're usually not going to be there to blast you out of
No,
and leave you
exactly.
for
Yeah.
dead. So I know I don't even feel like I'm intimidating, but I think if you're wanting to run with people and they're wanting to run with you, they're doing it for the company.
Yeah.
So take them up on it. Would
So
be my,
that's
you never
all.
know when you're going to become friends.
It's one way of saying, please make the Thursday club on a Tuesday, but also your DMs are going to be awash now with EH3ers going, I
Chris
will
is
come
not
for a
gonna
run with you.
Chris is not gonna do that. Me and Chris still haven't. Poor Chris is like, we need to book a run in, and I'm like, about this date, and he's like, I can't do that
Chris
one.
doesn't run anymore. He just pretends he does.
Well, I'm not dissing Chris because he's bloody lovely, that's for sure.
He is. He is that. He is that. We could talk all night, but I am very conscious.
That's
So,
fine.
thank you very much for joining me, Serena. There's a lot that we could have covered, so I think we'll let the audience make their call. And I would love to have you back, but thank you very much for joining me for this one. And I've got a little bit of reading to do.
Thanks for having me on, and it's great to actually have the time to chat for a long time. So
All the best for the year ahead, and we'll be keeping a track of how you get on.
thanks.
Amazing. I've no idea how Serena manages to do all that she does and remain the smiley, happy, positive superwoman who she is. The distances Serena has covered are mind melting to me, but with the events she's lined up on the horizon, oh, they're just equally as mental. As with all the guests that I have on, I can only wish Serena all the very best of luck with all the events she has ahead of her. Give her all the love, praise, shout outs, and follows that she deserves. Share our chat far and wide, and I'll in turn share the praise for your support to Serena if you tag us in the stories. The next episode will hopefully see a mini step back from the ultra chat for a change. I'll announce who the guest is on Monday, but I suspect they're going to be popular with the wider Instagram community and a face not unfamiliar with the old podcasting game themselves. We've rolled on a little bit longer than we have recently. We're going back to days of old, so let's start thinking about wrapping up for the day. If you've liked what you've heard today, the best way to support the podcast is to do what you've done today, to download, to stream, and to listen to the show. A quick share with your family and friends, or a share on social media alongside a tag back to the show's page wouldn't go amiss either. These are just 2 free ways that you can show your support for what I'm doing. If you'd like to show your physical support for the podcast, you can purchase a t-shirt from our merchandise partners over at Twisted Running. All proceeds stay with Twisted and help them grow the brand that are doing such valuable work with other collaborations, with running groups, with podcasts, that sort of thing. The quality of their products is top notch, As I've been saying, I'm not getting paid to say that. I spend my own money on the show's shirts, and I only have positive things to say about the quality and finish. You can find a direct link to the Twisted 99 page on our website, thepoint99podcast.com, or by Googling Twisted Running. Dropping them a follow on social media would also be a great thing to do. The show is available on all major podcast platforms though, so if your friends and family don't like using Apple or hate using Spotify, there's always going to be an alternative for them. You can also find every single episode streamable on our website. If you're kind of that way inclined, you can also download them there via our inbuilt player. Finally, we're on both Instagram and Facebook. Just search for the Point 99 podcast if you'd like to follow what I'm doing over there. If you want to get in contact, you can always leave a comment in the posts, drop a direct message over, or email me at thepoint99podcast@gmail.com. That's thepoint99podcast@gmail.com. I apologise to anyone who's not used to the slightly longer episodes reappearing, but hopefully it'll be a one-off because it was a great chat I had with Serena, and the stories, they helped make it a bit of a jam-packed episode. But until episode 8 rolls around, I hope you stay safe, enjoy your runs, and you will hear from me soon.